I am Brendan Clark. This is my co-host Swall Hall, and today we're meeting on uncommon ground. So we have plenty to get to today. Where if you saw our last episode, we're bringing the hot seat back. It is Swall's turn to be on the hot seat. If you didn't see the last episode, we'll briefly explain it when we get there at the end of the episode. Our three topics we're going to be covering before that are spicy in their own right. We have a economic jobs report that wasn't quite what Trump wanted it to be, which led to him firing the commissioner who releases the report, something that is unprecedented and was rather uncalled for, at least in my opinion. Then we'll get to the Department of Education. There's been mass layoffs. There was a first wave that was months ago, a second wave plan that was held up in the courts, finally kind of got through, and now I think it's 1,400 people that have been laid off. We'll talk about all of that. And lastly, there's a redistricting battle. I'm sure if you've been any bit of online or you watch the news at all, you've heard the term gerrymandering in the last week or two. As it started in Texas, now it's a national discussion with Gavin Newsom discussing doing it possibly. New York's talking about getting in the mix. So we'll touch on all of that.
And then right here at home, don't forget.
Yeah, and in Indiana, we can't forget. So it's going to be like a national battle of the red versus blue. Who can draw better maps? Who would have thought that art would play that big of a role in politics? But starting with the jobs report, it was a big economic report in general. We'll focus mostly on the jobs numbers because that kind of is what pertains to the firing. It showed abysmal numbers for the month of July, and then it also revised the months of May and June down horrendously. It was over 250,000 that they revised it down. For July, I think the number of jobs was like 74,000. It's been a few days since I looked at it, so it might be a few off there. And then the May and July numbers were revised down in the tens of, like, it was like around 10,000. One I think was in the teens, something like that. Horrendously low numbers. You want like a baseline of at least 100,000 a month created to show like your economy is going well. And the biggest thing to take from that was a loss of manufacturing jobs. We've had 3 months in a row losing manufacturing jobs. So that kind of sets the table for what was in the report. Swall, before we get to the firing or anything like that, what are the, if you have any other numbers you saw, or what are your thoughts on having seen the report now?
Yeah. No, those are the same numbers that I had. As far as like boots on the ground, just like what it feels like, just like talking to people and like what I've seen, I think that this is accurate,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
Just from what I'm hearing from people I know who are in the trades and who work in factories and just people I know who are those type of workers and stuff. I think it's pretty accurate. So I don't have anything else to say on that. I do have stuff about the firing, but I'll let you uh, talk about that first.
Yeah. And before we get there, just a couple more numbers I wanted to rattle off that were in the report and then maybe get your opinion on, then we'll get to the
Cool.
firing.
Yeah.
There was also, so unemployment, I mean, as you would imagine with all these jobs, unemployment went up. I do think it was only like 0.1%, but it is still significant to see it rising where we had multiple months of it dropping in a row prior to this. Inflation is up as well. Core inflation specifically is at the highest percent since COVID. So that's also pretty substantial. And the GDP, while it did bounce back, our first quarter under Trump, many of you will remember, was negative. We saw negative growth. People were scared of a recession. This one bounced back, but was still under projections by about 1%. So it seems like in all facets, the tariffs, or at least the Trump economy, if you don't want to blame the tariffs, are underperforming or failing. So what are your thoughts kind of just there broadly on the economic painting or picture that's painted?
Yeah, I'm glad that we had a bounce back on GDP. I did see that thing about unemployment as well, which obviously is not surprising given the other statistics. But yeah, overall, I'd say that I don't think that this administration has gone, or I guess this first term, I should say, or the second term has gone quite as well as Trump was hoping it would, especially because his whole thing was jobs, 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 especially like manufacturing. That was his big thing is we're going to bring factories back to America. We're going to stop doing stuff in China. It's all going to be in America. And clearly that has not worked. So yeah, that's really all I have to say on that part of this.
Is it enough for you to write the tariffs off as a fail, or is there more time you would give them? Where are you at on the tariff thing now?
I mean, I'm not an economist, so I don't know what the appropriate amount of time is to give things to like trickle through and like give its whole lifespan. But if we were calling it today, abject failure, for all I know, maybe it's like, oh, it's got to dip down, and then in 3 months, like I'm not an economist, I don't really know how it works, but if we're calling it today, yes, I'm with you. It's been a complete embarrassment.
Yeah, we'll jump over to the firing, but the last thing I wanted to say
Yes.
was I do the things I would say kind of paint that picture for me is we started losing these jobs after the Liberation Day, the month where Trump put in all these tariffs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's specifically the manufacturing sector where we're losing these jobs, which is where people predicted jobs would be lost from tariffs. So I think that that pretty clearly connects the two. But you know, tariff supporters won't ever admit it, I don't think. Next is, yeah, Trump responds to this by, I don't know if you saw the Truth Social post as well. He essentially called it fake news. He said
Yep.
that, like, you know, it was made up to be against him. And he went on his usual rant, you know, go, if you want entertainment, follow Trump on Truth Social and look at it anytime after like 10 p.m. He's always on a rant. But then he goes on to take it a step further and actually fire the commissioner. For
Mm-hmm.
those who don't know, these aren't like partisanly, they're not like politically affiliated people. They're not like partisanly chosen. I actually even think that this person got the job during Trump's first term, if I remember. I might be off about that as well. I know they had tenure, they'd been there a while. They're like civil servants. So him firing this person is unprecedented. It's something that he actually, Schedule F in his first term, passed an executive order that allowed a president to do. So it wasn't even allowed to do more so than like 5 years ago. So Swall, what are your thoughts on the firing?
Yeah, he had said that it was the numbers were manipulated and dishonest, I think is how he phrased it. And of course, big surprise, something in the Trump administration is, taking and undermining confidence in our institutions. Oh wow, what water is wet. like this is basically his had been the MO the entire time since 2016 when he first got in there. We've just got more and more questioning of our institutions, and again him saying, oh, this is all fake, this is all fake. It's like this is his favorite thing to do, is to point out that the whole system is bunk, yada yada yada. And yet he wants to, try very 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 hard to be a part of the system, to get back into office, even though the whole thing's bunk. Makes sense. But yeah, I don't want to try to frame this as Trump is bad, Trump is good. I want to frame it as, did the firing protect public life? Did it help our country? I don't really think that it did. I think it's clearly shown that it's just going to continue to have the MAGAites, the crazies, and the Republicans be like, see, this is just another way that the country's not blah, blah, blah. It's all taken over. And so I think that this is a bad move. Even if the numbers are slightly off or whatever, I just think optically, it again, it's undermining our institutions. And like you said, this is not a nonpartisan individual. It's not like this is a Democrat guy. This is just a dude doing his job. So, I mean, if it's true that he failed to do his job correctly and it's out, I think they even said that the methods were outdated or something. Like, if that's all true, then, like, of course, nobody wants outdated methods. We want accurate numbers.
And I
But
think, well, I think the problem with that is when you're doing it and then Trump is handpicking the person to replace.
right, right,
If you want to have these problems and you want to say it's a political thing, well, why shift it your way then?
right, right.
Let it be
Exactly.
independently
Yes.
chosen.
Let it be nonpartisan, which just shows clearly he just wants to keep up the idea that Trump supports jobs. He's helping our economy. Like, that's that. If you ask like a semi not crazy MAGA person and you ask them why they voted, they're going to be like, the economy was so good, and like blah, 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 blah. And so
Immigration and
taking this away from Trump is no bueno. And so, yeah, it seems like it's politically motivated. He's just trying to silence inconvenient facts. And
Do you
obviously
think
that's problematic.
do you think there's any way we could recover from the credibility hit that institutions
Oh
are going
my
to take
gosh.
under Trump?
That's my biggest concern for the last decade of this country. I have no idea. Obviously, I'm a little bit of an optimist. I'd like to believe that anything can happen. So
I
I'm
think we
not going to
might be
say it's
cooked.
impossible,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm kind of with you on like what can be done, because even even somebody like, I mean, even people who have a tight head on head on their shoulders or whatever, you see stuff like this, and then it's like, this just is actual evidence of people
Yeah.
tampering with our system.
Yeah.
So that even reinforces it
It's
anyways.
it's just they've done a really good job in convincing people that blind skepticism is critical thinking. And I
Right.
try to like tell people that like, yes, you shouldn't blindly trust anything, but if you're just blindly not trusting anything, you're like in the same box. And
Yes.
just quickly, my example for why I think we're cooked, and Swa, you might have saw this on my Facebook, was like I posted something about conspiracy theories, and on one of the comments I put in there, I was like, the Earth isn't flat, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
I
did see
get
that.
way, I've never even met a flat earther in my life, but apparently I have, and I just didn't know because multiple people I
Hmm.
grew up with are commenting on there saying the earth is flat. And they're telling me the only reason I think the earth is round is because of NASA, which is controlled by the government, which we can't try, and all of this. And it's like, you guys think that this is critical thinking, and it's just, I
It's
don't know.
just,
That's
yeah.
that's my rant for this
It's
episode.
past skepticism. It's that cynicism. Like
It,
it's
it
just
really
they
is, yeah.
don't think anything can be trusted unless they've seen it with their own eyes. But then they blindly follow things
Yeah.
that they haven't seen with their own eyes.
It's
And
like
as a
they,
conservative, it's really frustrating because we used to be the party of free markets, and
yeah.
it's like we need reliable information to function, and we can't be functioning off of conspiracy nonsense.
It's the problem of people correctly identify the problem of some people blindly trusting these institutions and such with no critical thinking. But then in the response to that, they just go to the other extreme of like the horseshoe,
Mm-hmm.
where, like I said, they're just blindly not trust, like we just can't trust anything the government says. And it's like, hey guys, like, like the government can say things that's true too, like
Right.
not always lying to you. But did you have anything else on the jobs report or the firing?
No, I mean, like I said, I think I mean, this is my petition for any conservative that listens to this show. Stop believing conspiracy theories. Look at the actual data. We
Yeah.
need the free markets. We need reliable information, and we have to be able to trust the system. Or else the entire country is. I mean, it's just a waste of our time at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for you, Tommy. I know you're watching my
Is that
conservative
one of
member.
our viewers?
Yeah, he's a member on my channel, hardline conservative. Loves
Let's
you,
go,
huge,
Tommy. You're my guy.
huge fan of yours. He's probably to your right though, but does like
Yeah,
you.
probably,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, because he's a huge Trump guy. But yeah, so on from that firing to mass firings at the Department
Yeah.
of Education, kind of similarly themed. Swa, I'll kind of let you start and just give your opinion on the firings on the Department of Education as a whole, as the conservative voice before I go in, because I'm sure
Yeah.
anyone, will know where I stand. But yeah, as we touched on, it's 1,400 people laid off. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe my numbers are wrong, but I actually had more than that even. But yeah, I think obviously as a conservative, I'm going to be in favor of trimming waste if there is waste occurring. But the big thing there was if waste is occurring. Again, I'm not in these circles. I don't know what is or isn't waste in the government on a deeper level. I would argue that things should be, if something can be handled by the smallest level of government, I would prefer for it to be handled at a local state level over than a like a federal government level. And so on that level, obviously, I'm not like completely opposed to layoffs when it comes to federal departments and stuff like that. It's just is it actually justified? Obviously, I want to put power in the hands of the people, the parents, the local communities, even the private institutions, the schools. I'd much rather have them have the power than people in DC who have nothing. They have no idea what's going on, and like we're in Indiana. They have nothing. They have no idea what's going on in such and such county. So I'm not opposed to it, but if these cuts are just about saving money and they're not worried about like making sure students and teachers have what they need, then I think that that's a bad thing. But overall, it just sort of depends on the actual implementation of these things and if they're reallocating some of these tasks and things that need to be done to local, state, other forms of government. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
I'm curious before I give my take. What were the numbers that you had, just so people could maybe get a range?
So maybe it's because mine was just federal workers broadly. I had that 150,000 federal employees were currently
Hmm.
being paid while not working
Yeah,
that
yeah,
he
okay.
had put on paid leave, but maybe that was a
You're
separate.
Yeah, you're
back than
jumping the
just the
gun.
department. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
You're
that's a
jumping
different
the
thing.
gun. That's what we were going to get to on the second half of this,
Oh,
which
oh, okay,
it is
okay,
there are a lot of Department of Education workers included in that, but it is
okay.
overall government. So
Two
just
separate
quickly,
numbers.
yeah, before we get there on the Department of Education, my problem with it is a lot of this is justified. You'll hear Republicans talk about like oh, the testing scores have been dropping, and there's woke curriculum, and the Department of Education doesn't handle any of that, right? Like they handle the administrative side, which I think should be a federal responsibility, especially with something as critical as education. I think it kind of gets I could see how there is some swamping even on the federal level, but I think if a small locality doesn't have like the ability to handle the administrative side of things, that be like Title I funding for low income students, IDEA, the funding for special needs students. And this is something I see actually in the school that I work at, where we are it's a charter school, so they have to handle a lot of things themselves. And
Hmm.
because of that, a lot of like low income students aren't registered on time or appropriately and things like that. And which I think that federal oversight kind of helps. And we're seeing that play out with these layoffs. There was what I wanted to cite here was there was a survey of 900 educational institutions on all levels. It was on the local, the state, and then the federal, but the jobs are given through the Department of Education, and they were surveyed on these layoffs and how they were being affected. And 40% of them said that they were experiencing delays with federal aid payments, with things like their Title I funding. So, and I also think to do it as it's like coming into school where the administrative side is going to be the most demanding, it just is kind of egregious to me. Is that like something you would agree with?
Yeah, bad timing. I could understand that. Like maybe you want to do this in like I don't know June 1st or
Yeah.
something like not yeah not maybe not August 1st as we're starting the new school year. And like I said, I'm not against the feds having something to do with education in general. I just my general rule is if and again if it can be handled smaller, it should be handled
Yeah.
smaller. If it can't, then it can't. Then it
Yep.
should be up. And I think it's just a balance of I think sometimes some things are pushed too much on the local, and then sometimes things are pushed way too much on the federal.
Yep.
And I think we just need to do a better job at striking the balance of like, okay, what can be handled
Yeah.
here? Like when it comes to curriculum, for instance, I think there's some things that need to be universalized. Doesn't matter where you
Yeah.
are. We need
I actually
English,
think it's really
science,
bad that
math,
that's on the state level.
etc.
Yeah.
We obviously have to have certain things like that. But when it comes to like which books do you read in English? I don't think the feds need to decide that. That can be an Indiana, Florida decision, whatever. Oh, we want our kids to read To Kill a Mockingbird, this, that, and the other thing. Like some of the more, I guess, the lesser things should be handled
Yeah.
locally because they'll know the needs of that individual community just better. So
Yeah,
that's
I,
kind of my
I
thoughts
actually
there.
agree with a lot of what you said there, except because like what the Department of Education does right now, it's like they handle like the civil rights side of things. They do
Right.
Title I, which is low income funding, and they do IDEA, which is funding for special needs education, which
Right.
I think is like if we were gonna narrow down the federal government's scope to like 6 things, I think that that would be on it, right? Like ensuring that low income and special needs students have adequate education resources, that would
Right.
be on my Mount Rushmore of government responsibilities. So like attacking that is always curious to me. But I also would even go further than maybe you. I do agree on like with you on the books and like what you can read. But I've always been a proponent of like there should be a national, like why don't we have a federal curriculum standard or testing standard? Like this is why we have degrading testing scores, is because we have some states that are like allowing the most random shit to be taught that doesn't need to be taught at
Yep.
all. And then like STEM is being like overlooked in so many schools. And it's like we should mandate like a STEM focus. We should mandate like a certain standard of testing, which I do agree how we get there is a big how, right? That is an unanswered question. I know like Bill Gates has tried to do things, and his no child, I don't know if he was No Child Left Behind, but like No Child Left Behind
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
big fail. Bill Gates and his foundation, they're giving into education has been a big fail. So it is I will concede it's a bit like how do we get there, right? But the last thing I want to get on your opinion on this is as you spoke to, the over 150,000 federal workers. They're being paid to not work. Things like early retirement, they're being offered buyouts, deferred resignations. So people who are, they're being paid, but they're technically not working right now. What do you think this speaks to on the efficacy and the cutting of waste, fraud, and abuse from this initiative?
Yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more information about this because, on one hand, it implies that you would rather pay them to not do the work, which means like they're saying the issue is the work that they were doing and not the money,
Yeah.
which is sort of difficult for me to wrap my head around because the money that I feel like even
You're almost getting
progressives
it, Swall.
can understand why you would want to cut the money. Like people that makes sense if it's actually being wasted. I feel like anybody would agree if there's being waste, we should cut the waste. What's being wasteful is where we disagree, of course, but that makes sense to me. Saying we're going to cut it, but we're still going to spend the money. Like I don't, like
You're
what are you saying
almost there,
there?
Swall. You almost are getting it.
So
It's because the jobs are the problems because they're not privatized and they're willing to pay whatever cost it takes to get to the point where they can replace that with privatized jobs.
so explain that to me on one more layer. So you're saying, let's say I don't know what a federal job that is being paid that they're not doing, but let's just pick one, even though they are. This
Department
is
of
probably not
Education.
one of them. Let's say, yeah, Department of Education. They're like, okay, this is not one, but the Secretary of Department of Education, we're gonna stop having them do the work, but we're still gonna pay them their $100,000 salary.
Yeah.
Getting that job to be privatized, how does getting that person paid accomplish that goal? I don't really understand
So
that jump there.
it's a couple things. One, it makes the departments more inefficient, which gives you more political capital to defund those agencies, right? It's harder to
Okay.
say we can't have the Department of Education if the Department of Education is working really well. But if it's not working well, then it's like,
Sure.
why are we doing this? And then also it's because they're trying to work to the point like deferred resignations. A lot of these people are held up in the courts, things like that, or they have to get congressional votes because of like the Impoundment Control Act. They have to get congressional votes to end the agencies, to defund the agencies. So they're like deferred for that. So they're willing to pay these people if it'll get them to eventually ending these jobs because then, their donors can come in and privatize them.
Okay, and then at least on a financial aspect, you can argue, even though it's dubious to argue, probably, you could argue, yes, we're paying them their salary this year and maybe next year, but in 2028, the whole department will be gone. And then that's when this money saving happens because now there is no job at all.
Yeah.
Is that sort of the.
That's like the argument.
Okay.
And even more so than that,
Yeah,
they're not
dubious.
even, yeah, they're not even conceding that. It's more so, well, the Democrats are blocking it or the jobs would have been gone already, kind of. They're like, if they weren't blocking us in court.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's not our fault we're
Yeah,
choosing to pay them. We could just
exactly.
not, but
We could just have them
okay.
do the jobs, Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did
The
cut you
only
off. What do you want to, what were you saying about them?
uh remind me where I was at. What was the last thing I said?
I don't remember. I had cut you off to say you were almost getting it though. And then
Oh,
I just didn't
uh,
mean to derail you if
oh,
you
you're good.
have
No,
anything
I
else
mean,
to add.
I was just trying to understand sort of why we would pay people to not do the jobs if the whole reason was we're trying to save
Yeah.
waste. That
Because
didn't make sense to me.
they don't care about actually saving waste.
Yes, and that seems to be, or they're so diluted that yeah, oh, in 2029 or whatever. Like I said, that's the only thing I can really think of. Um, like I said, I am a supporter of smaller budgets. I am a supporter of parent-led education. I think parents have a right to be involved in what their kids are learning, where they're going, et cetera, et cetera. But if it's just a bunch of political scheming, I'm never for that. And so
Yeah.
that's sort of my take there.
And I don't think we're too far apart on that, other than, I mean, I don't know
I
how.
know we have some. We've talked about homeschooling versus
Yeah,
whatever. I know there is some other debates there, but
Yeah. In principle, I wouldn't disagree that homeschooling is best. I just don't know how plausible it is for a lot of people. That's where we would disagree. But
sure.
on to gerrymandering, redistricting,
Yeah.
starting in Texas. Texas already, for those who don't know, was already one of the most gerrymandered states. If you look on the map, they're now talking about redistricting it, re-gerrymandering it, if you will, to pick up 5 additional seats. They're doing this largely because the projections of the 2026 midterms have Republicans losing the House majority, probably keeping the Senate. So they're really worried about what they're going to do. And gerrymandering Texas seems to be the answer. We'll start there, I guess, before we get into, obviously, it gets a lot more broad. So we'll start there, Swall, kind of get your take, and then we'll broaden out as we go.
Yeah. So again, obviously, gerrymandering, like you said, is just political gamemanship. It's just a bunch of scheming and backstabbing and all the stuff we watched on House of Cards. And I hate that stuff. I hate that shit. But I mean, Obama said it when that show came out. He said 80% accurate. So we should have known. Like,
Right. Yeah.
and so my position obviously is that I want transparency, I want fairness, and I want to actually represent the people fairly. So, again, I don't live in Texas. I don't know if the maps need redrawing. I don't know if it's actual fair representation. I can only speak about where I live and what my state is dealing with. But obviously, I want the best maps drawn possible. I want it to accurately represent the people who live in those areas and their views on things. And I don't know if you want me to talk about the Democrats walking or any of that yet, but
Yeah, no,
uh,
first I just want to ask, what do you think? Because the way they're done is most Democrat states use independent commissions. Some don't. Illinois is really, they do partisan, like they're bad, but most, like California, New York, a lot of these use commissions, independent commissions, while red states draw them within the party, like partisan officials draw it. What are your
yeah.
thoughts? Are you comfortable with the party drawing their own maps, or do you think that these commissions are the way to go forward?
Yeah, I mean, I assume the commissions are as much as possible like, oh, 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans. They try to
Yeah.
be
I think it's like three and
balanced.
yeah, I think it's like 3-3 with the
Yeah.
independent tiebreaker if necessary,
Yeah.
something of the sort like that.
You're pretty stupid if you don't think that that's better, in my opinion, I guess. Like, why
Yeah,
would you want it to be biased, even if it's your side?
yeah.
Um, I just want things to be fair. Like, it just makes sense to,
I agree.
hey,
I
we need
think
some people on both sides to,
it's
so that way it's unbiased.
it's one of those things I think is crazy that we let the states decide. That's where I think, we should have a federal law around this. It should be decided, and we shouldn't be like, well, Texas can draw whatever map they want, and New York can draw theirs. And it's like, why would we do that? Why not make it just the most fair? But yeah, then as you kind of alluded to, Democrats to stop this, they fled Texas. This kind of started it into a more national discussion. What are your thoughts on the move from the Democrats leaving? Do you see this as cowardly, or do you think they're protecting democracy? These are kind of the competing depictions from the two sides.
Yeah, quickly, I just wanted to touch on what you were saying about it should be state, or I mean, it should be federal versus state. This is the weird thing about America being a group of states that decided to make a country rather than like a country first. We run into a lot of these weird issues where 300 years ago, well, of course, when it was just a bunch of random independent colonies and states, we need the states and those things to decide everything. That makes sense.
Mhm.
200 years later, when we've been a country for so long, it's just batshit. So,
Mhm.
striking that balance of what our books say, like what of our laws and all of our constitutions and all of our documents say, versus what actually functions in a fully fledged country, is always going to be a push and pull with America. But going back to the Democrats, yeah, I don't think it's cowardly. I just think it's a short term tactic that isn't going to really be a long term solution. I think in the end, it's just going to deepen divisions, and we're avoiding the hard work and conversations of persuasion and compromise that's going to happen. At the end of the day, something's going to have to give. And so I feel like this is kind of kicking the can down the road to some degree, but
I would
that's
agree
just kind
with
of my
that.
thoughts.
Do you think then that the blue states like California and New York also saying, well, if Texas is going to do it, then we're going to do it? I know Newsom, has like publicly said this a bunch. Do you think that that's a step in the right direction and Democrats trying to use leverage to like make the discussion, or do you think stooping to their level is the wrong thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they're doing it, but again, I think that at the end of the day, we're going to have to come to a compromise here. So I think, as we discussed, bipartisan redistricting commissions is the only way. And
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. It should just be federally mandated. Is Trump going to do that? Is this administration going to implement that? I don't know.
See, that's what I'm
But I'd
wondering.
like to see it.
Do you think the blue states coming out and saying that, well, we'll just do it? Well, like California saying, well, we're just going to do it. And New York saying, well, we're just going to do it too. Do you think that makes it more likely that we get to a federal ban? Or do you think that makes it more likely that blue states draw it blue and red states draw them red?
The optimist in me wants it to go one way, but the realist in me is like people are going to dig their heels. It's been identity politics and not like LGBT. I just mean like right,
Yeah,
left,
yeah.
progressive. That's been our country for the last 20 years. So it's like I'd like to believe that that'll make a difference, but I think unfortunately it's probably going to be people digging in their heels until somebody forces it to go one way or the other.
See, I've been on the fence about this. I've actually done videos where I flip-flopped and flipped back and all of this on my channel because I am
He's a
typically,
shill.
yeah, I'm right. Yeah, I'm typically of the Michelle Obama persuasion where when they go low, we should go high. I think that in most
Yeah, yeah.
instances that you should do that, right? With this, it's a tricky one because Democrats have, like, there have been bills brought to ban gerrymandering federally to do these kind of independent commissions. Republicans always vote against it.
Of
And it's
course.
like, for me, so if we're at this point, and to their credit, like centrist Dems, like again, there's blue states that abuse this too. Like Illinois, it has a really bad, really partisan map. I'm not trying to say it's only Republicans. It's just a
Right.
lot worse.
Mainly
Yeah, it's
Republicans.
just a lot worse on the Republican side. But for me, it's like, yeah, I don't know what else we could do to really exercise any leverage other than, okay, well, if you motherfuckers are gonna go, and I'll bleep that, but if you guys are gonna go low, we're gonna go low too. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, because if we keep going high and they just keep going low, and it's like you see democracy slowly getting eroded away, at some point you got to try something, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like the moral side of me is like, yeah, always go high, be the bigger person, yada yada yada. But sometimes this is why I'm glad I'm not a politician or like in any of these cutthroats. I'm not a big CEO corporate guy or I got to be back. Like I'm glad I'm not in these situations because logically I follow why you would want to. Yeah, okay. Well, we're just gonna blah blah blah. Like it makes sense. I don't blame them. Morally, I'm like, probably shouldn't do that. Should probably stick to our morals and do things the right way. But again, like you said, when things just get shut down again and again and again, or um, you know, like the Republicans, continue to erode and promote fascist ideals and stuff again and again and again. Eventually, you can't play nice with people in the political sphere. Eventually, something has to give. So, I kind of see both sides, but my prayers and my hopes are that we just get a bipartisan
Yeah.
commission, all
Mhm.
50 states,
Yeah.
implemented federally, yada yada. But we'll see what happens.
That's my hopes with the discussion is that both sides realize it's kind of mutually assured destruction. It's
Mm-hmm.
not really good optics for either side to be like, yeah, we'll cheat. Like at some
Right,
point, your
right.
voters are going to hold you accountable. Maybe not the more extreme ones, but like even me, like I mean, I'm not a Gavin Newsom guy at all. I'm not a Kathy Hochul guy at all either. But even me, like when they're saying this, I am kind of like, I don't know if that's the like boldly saying that you'll cheat. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Like, but teach their own, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, as we said in topic number one, just another example of people losing faith in the system because it's
Yeah.
like, again, oh, so you're just going to boldly cheat. Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
just telling us now,
Yeah.
hey, these maps are bullshit.
Exactly.
Cool. Then why am I voting?
Yeah.
Like,
Why? So like no blue voter in a red state matters, no red voter in
right.
a blue state matters now, and it's why the electoral college is stupid. But maybe that's a discussion for a
I
different day.
think that's funny because I think that's a bipartisan take. I feel like
Yeah.
every election I've been alive for, both sides are like, screw the electoral college. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Which that would only help on the federal level, but like still,
right,
it's dumb rule. But yeah, do you have anything
right.
else on that before
No, I'm ready for my butt to be on fire, dude. I want to get in this hot seat, dude. I've been waiting.
Yes, and for those who didn't watch, I was gonna say last week, but 2 weeks ago, we're not actually setting Swall's seat on fire. Don't worry, no fire hazards here. Instead of doing our usual debates to end, we thought of a couple new ideas that we'll be trying to throw in at the end of these episodes. One is a hot seat. What we're doing is one of us will be on the hot seat this week. It's Swa. The other of us gets full control of kind of like I guess cross examination essentially essentially, like
Mhm.
where I'm going to ask Swal questions, he gets to answer. If I want to follow up, I can follow up. If I want to move on, I can move on. So it's kind of like my control. Swal, he's in my domain here, and he gets to defend his beliefs. Swal, do you have anything you want to add or say? Last words before we.
Yeah, no. All my views are my own. That's all I have to say.
Right. Sounds good. Yeah, so you did me, I think, the decency of telling me that you had them in segments.
Yeah, yeah.
I have yours in segments too to
Cool,
make
cool.
it smoother. We're gonna do capitalism, your conservative beliefs, and
Yeah,
religion
yeah.
at the end. And then I have
Cool.
one for my ego if we have the time, that I'm gonna ask you at the end. But if we don't, we'll see.
Beautiful.
But yeah, so first we're gonna start with capitalism. Let me scroll back up to where my questions were. All right, so I want to know how you contend with capitalism's relationship with environmental erosion and climate change, where the inherent need to expand, industrialize, to seek profits leave negative effects on our atmosphere, on entire ecosystems, in many ways that will inevitably cost us down the line, both in money and lives.
Yeah, so I would somewhat reject the premise, and I would say that capitalism isn't necessarily opposed to regulations, and it's not opposed to morals. I can be a capitalist and really believe in the environment and start a for-profit business that is fighting for the environment, for instance. So I don't think it's necessarily inherently opposed. I would just say um, when capitalism meets people who don't have morals, that's when there gets to be problems where they're going to want to just push, push, push to make money, 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 planet be damned. But I am completely for necessary regulations where it's necessary.
Do you think in capitalism, what is more profitable tends to win out more?
Um, Not necessarily, I guess, would be
Okay,
my
how is
answer.
that not the case? Could you give me any example where that wouldn't be the case in a economic system that prioritizes profit?
Yeah, I would say, like, for instance, just on a very small level, like I used to have a business, and our literal slogan, one of our literal slogans was people over profit. That being said, we were a for-profit business. It was just, if it
Right.
comes down
So,
to
okay,
screwing people or profit, we're going to choose the people. And
so that's
so,
on a micro level. I'm talking on like a macro level. Do you understand that like the products and designs, the infrastructure that typically will win out in capitalism is that is more profitable? Like if you had two ways of making a phone, the way that more companies are going to end up making a phone is the way that makes them more money, right?
yeah, I would say the one that makes them the more money is the way that they're going to go, assuming, uh, well, but that doesn't necessarily tell us about those individuals' morals. So, like,
Right.
yeah,
So, okay, well, I'm not worried about the moral aspect, but that was a concession that I will take because it is, and I think it's pretty logically true, obviously, in a
well,
system
yeah, I
that
mean, it's
prioritizes
capitalism.
profit.
Obviously, they want profit.
Right. So then you would understand how negative consequences to our environment then is a problem that is more likely to happen under capitalism due to things like fossil fuels being more profitable than green energy initiatives. That would be the logical conclusion, right?
Well, I would say if there's no planet, there's no profit. So if they are actually intelligent, then they will look at the bigger picture, which isn't just money right now. It's, well, if I don't have a planet next week, well, then what is the use of this money? So it's nothing. None of these things are in a vacuum.
Sure, but they don't. We have things like the IPCC that found that the Industrial Revolution, for example, is the dominant cause of things like observed global warming. We have other reports that show how corporatization, the growing of corporations in an economy, leads to more greenhouse gas emissions. These things lead to increased natural disasters, are effects we see from climate change. We see a link to malnutrition, things like that. So my question is, how many lives, like how much of these negative effects are worth it for profit?
Well, obviously, I don't think any of them are, but I guess that's. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for. I don't think any of them are. I don't think any lives are worth losing ever. So,
Sure. So I want to go on to other winners and losers that I think exist in capitalism. As you asked me when I was on the hot seat, do I think it's inherently exploitative? I do. And I think that a lot of ways that people try to justify it is domestically. And I think it's a lot less defensible when you look at the global picture. So how I want to start here. How do you square the extraction of wealth and the exploitation of, say, like the global South from Western capitalist countries? I'm happy to get specific on that if you need. Like numbers, the OECD estimates we take over 100 billion out of Africa from things like repatriation, tax evasion, that kind of thing, with only 60 billion going in. So we are extracting more than we're putting in, and we're doing so we can benefit from cheaper raw materials and things like that that capitalism needs to be more profitable. So how do you square that kind of exploitation?
Yeah, again, I would say that your questions, at least so far, are conflating things that happen in a world that has capitalism with capitalism, because capitalism never mentions Africa. It doesn't mention going and getting resources. None of that is capitalism. That's
So their
something that can
outcomes,
happen in capitalism, but it's
I
not
want to
necessarily
clarify real
capitalism.
quick, and then I'll let you keep going.
Sure.
It's things that capitalism incentivizes through being profit, through profit motive being the priority.
But I wouldn't say capitalism equals profit motive either. I would say capitalism equals I own capital and I'm allowed to own capital.
Well, you
That's
agreed
not.
with me. You agreed with me on a macro level that in capitalism, things that are more profitable will tend to win out. Something that is more profitable is extracting resources from poorer countries, setting up corporations in poorer countries for lower wages, and then repatriating those funds back to your home country. These are things that lead to poverty in these countries. We have reports that show that 4 to 8 million lives could be lost a year due to the money that is extrapolated from like the African economy. How much of this is worth it for the Western countries to be a success?
Yeah, again, capitalism is just private actors own and control their property. So that just has nothing to do with what you're saying. What you're saying is,
Yes,
why
it
are bad
does.
people doing bad things? And I'm
Right.
saying, I
Because
mean,
capitalism incentivizes it. And you agreed.
no, private actors owning
So
and controlling their own property
again,
does not incentivize this.
on a macro level, does capitalism incentivize what will bring more profit?
If you are a for-profit business, you will want to make profit.
Okay,
Does
so
that
then
answer
they
your
will be
question?
yes, yes, exactly. That does, very honestly. And that is why capitalism then leads to these results, because companies are more incentivized to take actions like this because they're more profitable than the ethical ones.
Yeah, but you're acting. I don't know. I don't know if that was a question. So I
Yeah,
guess
well,
I won't say
it was
anything.
just responding, and I was gonna let you keep going.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I would just say when I defend capitalism, I'm defending the right for a private individual to own and control property.
I understand. Do you
I'm not arguing that that person can then be an asshole and go
Sure. So I
rob
guess
and
what I'm
go.
trying to get to
So I
is
would say they just need to be better people. But
yeah,
that's not
so
capitalism.
what I'm
That's just they're a
trying
bad person.
right. Well, what I'm trying to paint here, and what I think you're admitting until the question is actually then put forth in front of you, is that capitalism, whether you personally defend it, these things, or think they should exist, incentivizes these outcomes. These outcomes happen under capitalism because of the profit motive existing and it being prioritized. And I think that in admitting that on a macro level, and what is more profitable will win out, you then have to concede that these type of outcomes will win out in capitalism because they're more profitable.
Yeah, I guess I would just say it to me it feels like let's take socialism. There's going to be the fat cat politician people who want to be in the government knowing that they'll control the means of production and all of that, who abuse and send people to the gulags and do all. Yeah, but is that socialism or is that bad people and then a system? Are those two separate things or are those the same? Because if they're the same, then we have to say the same thing for socialism. And now socialism equals millions dead in gulags and bread lines. So is it
Yeah,
separate or is it together?
that's not analogous because you can't draw how socialism as a system leads to that as a logical outcome. It's
I
people.
can because somebody has to be on
No.
top
Hold
and
on,
it's
hold
the
on, hold on, hold
government.
on, hold on. It's
Sorry.
people under socialism doing these things. I'm explaining how capitalism, through what it prioritizes, leads to these outcomes. You're explaining someone under socialism doing something. Those are two different things.
But I'm saying socialism incentivizes it because all of the power goes to this one place Therefore, all the power hungry crazies go to that one place.
It doesn't go to
So it
one. That's
incentivizes. It does. It goes to the government. That's what it is.
No, it would go to the workers who own the means of production. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything on socialism, so
Sure.
we don't have to go in on
Sure.
that.
Sure. Sure.
I want to go on to conservative beliefs. How do you square conservatism as a strong political ideology, despite it not only leading to leaders like Donald Trump being elected, but worse historical economic outcomes than when liberals are in power from less GDP creation, less job creation, more debt, more inflation. I mean, the list goes on.
Well, can you ask the very first part of the sentence so I
How would
remember how it
you
started?
how would you defend it as being a strong political ideology? Or
Yeah, I mean, I would say Donald Trump's not a conservative. Everybody knows that.
but if
So I would
conservatism
say,
led to Donald Trump, how could you defend it?
well, I don't know that I would say that conservatism did lead to Donald Trump. I would
Okay, who
say
voted for Trump, liberals or conservatives?
um, either, I would say maybe neither. I would say populists voted for him, not conservatives.
Okay, you don't think.
Conservatives want a conservative amount of government. They don't want somebody.
Okay, well then, okay, if that, okay, I'm sorry, I have to corner you on this. Why does Trump gotten more votes than other Republicans then? If in your theory, not a single conservative who voted in any other
Well,
election is voting for Trump, he should have had lower
oh,
numbers.
that's not what I'm saying. I guess this is probably just a bad answer that you're not going to be happy with. But I would argue most Republicans are not conservatives. Conservatives and Republicans are not the same thing. Being a conservative means you want a conservative amount of government. If you don't, you're not a conservative. Doesn't matter who you vote for. Doesn't matter if you're Republican. Doesn't matter if you call yourself libertarian. If you don't want a smaller amount of government and the government leaving us alone, you're not conservative.
Okay,
It's a
so then
different thing.
maybe let's focus on the second half then, if we're just going to get in a semantic loop there. How do you square it if economic outcomes are typically worse under conservative presidents? Would it just be that no president has ever been conservative?
No president has ever been as conservative as I think they should be.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
but that,
So
which is why I said you wouldn't
this
like
is
my answer.
coke,
But
copium.
yeah, I mean, I, this is why I'm a man without a party because I don't think anybody represents conservatism on the public stage. I don't think any of these people are conservatives. I think most of them are. I think almost
Okay.
everyone in politics is a liberal.
Do you think conservatives voted for every other Republican president?
I'm sure that they did because they
Okay.
liked them more
So
than the
then how do you
liberals.
defend conservative as a strong political ideology when it leads to leaders who have worse historical outcomes than liberal leaders?
Can you give me some specific examples? Because I don't know that I agree with the worst outcomes thing.
Yeah, well, I didn't say economic specifically. The Economic Policy Institute, they have analyzed this. Republicans create less GDP. They have had higher unemployment levels. They have created less jobs, saw less wage growth, all than liberal. Oh, and they are worse on the debt and inflation than liberals.
So yeah, if we're gonna talk about, I think we need to talk about give and take because, for instance, excuse me, excuse me, I think that there could be horrible financials that end up happening under a Republican president, but for instance, I don't support what do you call them the drugs that they give sorry hormone blockers? No, puberty blockers. For instance,
Mhm.
I don't support puberty blockers for children. So if a president's going to uphold that but have shitty economics, you got to weigh: would I rather have the kids get the puberty blockers or better economics? And
Yes.
so that's how I square it. Is they at least defend enough things that I am okay with them
So,
defending,
okay.
that even the things that I hate that they do, at least they don't do the other things that I hate more. Does that make
So
sense?
then cultural outcomes mean more to you than economic ones.
I mean, they're somewhat intertwined, but yeah.
Okay.
Like for instance, abortion. That is way higher on my list than economics. I'd way rather stop kids from being murdered. I know you don't share that view. Than everybody's got a job.
Sure. What would you consider the baseline of necessities that should be provided to those who can't provide for themselves? It could be as mundane as like,
Hmm.
oh, just food or whatever, or it
We'll
could be as
probably agree on
expensive
this one.
as healthcare and stuff.
Food, clothing, necessary healthcare, meaning non-elective healthcare, and shelter.
What
Oh, and
about,
equal opportunity to work jobs to get a
yeah, yeah,
job.
yeah. I assumed you yeah, like the regularly accepted ones, or we're taking those as you would take those as well. What would you think? This is not this is an extrapolation from that, but not exactly the same. What would you think about childcare for working families? Like if there was like a tax for like,
Oh, based.
yeah, working people that funded child.
Extremely support that. I
Okay.
think that that's a conservative view, but no conservatives are going to agree with me. So,
Yeah, because taxes are socialism to a lot of
yeah,
people.
the
So,
part that, from my view, is conservative is family. We care about family.
mhm.
That's
What
it's
do
supposed
you,
to be our
so you
thing.
support like free school lunches and stuff too, then, right?
1000%.
Okay, cool. Jumping still conservative, jumping the ship completely. Are trans women women?
No.
Okay, for a category to be exclusionary, there has to be a necessary condition to fit in it. What is your necessary condition for a woman to be a woman?
Uh, I'm so bad at science, dude. I don't know all the terms. I'm gonna mess them up so bad. Essentially, the way I understand it is there's a developmental track, and there's only two of them.
I,
I don't know the full terms, gametes. I know, like, I'm not. I'm just not the guy for that. But as far as I understand it, even if you are a uh, like an intersex individual, essentially there's like a developmental track, and there's just two to choose from. But I'm not really the
No, and
guy who's going to parse that
there's
correctly.
also people with sexual developmental disorders, but I'm just curious, like, so you don't have a necessary condition to be a woman. So then
I'm not aware of it, but
by what
I
principle do you
smarter people.
justify your belief or lack thereof that trans women are women? What do you justify that on if you don't have an exclusionary principle?
Like I said, I mean, I'm out of what's the word? Practice is the best thing I could say. 2 years ago, when What Is a Woman came out, I would have been like had the site like the actual terms, but it's just been so long since I've
Okay,
talked
well,
about this.
that's one.
But what I'll say is common sense, religion.
Yeah, that's one you got to research on, so I can cook you on a
Yeah,
debate.
I just don't remember. It's been so long since I've talked
Um,
about that type of stuff.
so religion, we'll get to these, and if we get
Oh,
through them, I
here's
do
the
have
spicy ones.
one ego flexing question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
First one on religion. What do you see as the biggest flaw in your religious beliefs as a moral foundation?
Um, the inability to convince other people to accept them.
Okay.
Is that not a good one? I feel like that's a good one. I can't convince people to be religious, so
No, and I guess maybe I'll ask it in a different way, right?
oh,
Let's
maybe I
say,
misunderstood it.
yeah, it's kind of, I think, evading what I was trying to get at with the question.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask in a better, and it might have been me. Let's say your religious beliefs were accepted as the moral foundation, right?
Oh, what is was the flaw then?
Yeah, what do you think is the biggest flaw of it as a moral foundation? Not just, other people won't join it. Like,
Well, I didn't mean
if
it like
if
they're not
everybody
listening
was
to me.
using
I
it,
just meant
yeah,
like
yeah. If
it's a
everybody was using
faith
it
thing, so
as,
it's hard to like.
yeah,
It's not
but
like I'm showing you hard fact data. That's
yeah.
what I meant. I didn't mean it like.
I just mean like, yeah, if everyone's using it as the foundation for morality, what do you think the biggest flaw for society?
I don't know how to answer this without avoiding it either, though, because the particulars of my religion are that there's no problems. So, the biggest problem if it was a moral foundation, but everyone's accepting it. Ask me the next one, and I'm gonna kind of think about that one in the background because I'm not sure how to answer it.
Sure. Okay. So it was kind of building off that, but I was
Oh,
going to say,
sorry.
you're fine. I was going to say my biggest qualm with religion is that it kind of sets forth, and we discussed this, I think, when we did our debate, is that it sets forth divine objective morality that you're supposed to take on faith, that is being subjectively interpreted to you. You're supposed to take it on faith, that it is the moral divine or the objectively divine interpretation. In my opinion, that creates additional unnecessary barriers for an individual to critically think or analyze about what they're being told or instructed to do and believe, where you're less likely to question divine authority than normal authority. Is this an issue that you see being real, that you can understand? And if not, how do you settle it as not a problem?
Okay, yeah. I somewhat see what you're getting at there. So, at least with Catholicism, like it's easy as long as you've at least looked into and studied it a little bit to parse the non-negotiables from just this priest's opinion or just this bishop's opinion or just this pope's opinion. And so there's still a lot of critical, in my view at least, a lot of critical thinking that's involved. For instance, you could have I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. There's priests who have rainbow vestments and they're like LGBT blah blah blah, like, and I can critically look at, okay, well, what has the church said in the year 100, 200, 300, 400, and I can go through and say they don't approve of gays, they don't approve of gays, they don't approve of gays. So now I can critically look at what was consistently taught versus what this guy is saying, and I can put those up against each other. And so there's still critical thinking involved. It's not like I just blindly, whatever my priest says, I'm just, oh, he said gay is fine, so I guess it's
Right.
fine
But
now.
do you
Like,
think there's more barriers that might prevent someone from reaching that level if they believe that what they're being told is divine? Like you're more likely
yeah,
to
yeah. I mean, if
something
they
that isn't.
think that if they have wrongfully misunderstood the church's teaching to believe that every pope is just infallible, every word that they say, then yeah, you're definitely going to have people.
So,
We call them pope splainers
mhm.
or papists.
So
So yeah,
do you agree that there would be less means of stopping someone than from committing a heinous act if they felt it was divinely motivated rather than any other reason they could find, sadistically, just, for revenge, anything like that? If somebody believes they're ordained by God to kill that child, is there less mechanisms to stop them than someone who just wants to kill a child?
potentially, I think that the only thing that comes to mind would be, hey man, God didn't say that.
Yeah.
So
But
other than showing them,
if they
yeah, other than
truly believe,
showing them that it wasn't God, I don't know why you would start to, want to disobey. So
yeah,
yeah, I would imagine so. Uh,
is that a
give me one
problem for you?
second. I'm going to close my door because
Yeah,
my
you're good.
family just got home. I don't want
You're good.
babies in the background.
You're good.
Sorry, I had it closed and then my dog came in. So,
No worries. No worries.
you said, is that a problem for me?
Yeah.
Um, it's a concern. I don't know if problem is the right word, but
Have you
it's a
thought of
concern.
have you thought of a flaw yet? Good answer to the first one.
It's such a difficult question because of the infallible bit. If I was like a Protestant or a different kind of Christian, I would probably have a different answer. But like, as you know, as we've discussed, it's like from our view, certain things aren't negotiable. And so you're saying everyone accepts it. I'm bound to believe that my beliefs are based essentially. So I'm not going to have a problem if everyone just does what I think is the right thing. So it's sort of a difficult question to answer because it's eventually, from my view, you're basically saying if your morals, you think your morals are all right, and if everyone agreed with them, what's the problem with that?
Yeah,
And
so
so I'm like,
here
nothing.
I think I could do it pretty easily. I think that the biggest flaw, if everyone had adopted my beliefs, which are very like empirically based, like scientific method, justify things with evidence, is I think faith is important because I think that there's a correlation to optimism and hope with faith. Whereas there's not many times in life you get to be like larger than yourself or like live outside your body. And I think when you have like true faith in something, that is one of those few times, and that without that, if people were void of that and that everything was so empirically based, I think there would be less optimism for change or hope that things could get better rather than just, oh, I look around, everything I observe is negative, so I think my life will be negative forever. And I think it's a flaw that you can't think of a flaw. So,
But like, surely you understand just the way that it's set up. You're asking me to say what's wrong with God, essentially, which is a
yes,
hard
I'm
thing to
asking you
say.
to
How
critically
could I?
engage with your religious beliefs.
But it would just lead me. I would have to reject them to answer the question. You see what I'm saying? Like I would have to say God is wrong to answer the question. At which point, why would I believe in God? So it's sort of, you see what I'm saying? Does that make
I
sense?
think that leads to people that I think you're kind of proving the point that people for that exact reason will be then less likely to go down the rabbit holes that might lead them to questioning things. That is the exact point I was trying to make. I do want to go to the next one though. So do you think absent abortion and LGBTQ, like let's say that like just take those off the political
Sure.
sphere, right?
I would love to.
Yeah. Do you think the church would typically support more left-leaning
Yes.
politicians? Do you
Yes.
think it's an issue that do you think it's a problem that two issues can decide where so many religious people vote? Again, even if it leads to leaders like Trump, where so many religious leaders voted for Trump on solely like abortion, right?
Um, yes and no. So yes, I absolutely. I mean, just look at the U.S. Conference of Bishops. They've been fighting this administration the whole time. I think it's very obvious. I mean, um, what's the verse? I forget the exact verse, but Jesus is like, uh, shout out to giving me a roof to live under, giving me food, yada yada yada. And they're like, we never did that. And he's like, yeah, you did. Whenever you helped the homeless guy, the drug addict, that was me.
Mhm.
That's like his main thing, and that's pretty left leaning,
Yeah.
basically. And so yeah, I think absolutely. If it wasn't for some things like that, that it would lean more left. Do I think it's an issue? I don't think it's an issue because of the extremeness of particularly one of those issues. I don't think the LGBT thing is nearly as big of a deal as anybody thinks
Like
that it is.
here, let
But
me pose it to you like directly. If you like, let's say the 2024 election was about to be rehabbed right now, and you're the deciding vote, right?
oh no.
Would you vote for Trump because he's the pro-life candidate, knowing like you know everything
well,
that's
he
happened is
yeah.
going to happen? You know all of that's going to happen, but he's pro-life. And Kamala obviously is going to do, you know, she's going to put abortion pro-choice back federally. Would you still vote for Trump knowing your vote is the deciding factor
On that issue, yes.
on that,
But
just that
again,
one issue?
from my perspective, you're saying, would you vote against Kamala to save babies from being slaughtered? Well, like, if I worded it like that, everybody would agree. No, we don't want babies slaughtered. So that's, but I don't like single issue voters other than the abortion issue. But on all
Other than
other
my
issues,
single issue, other than my
but
single issue.
again,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I know it's your turn to ask questions or whatever, so stop me if you need to stop me. But
Good.
I think we as a society are going to struggle with this abortion question until both sides recognize the way both sides view it. You guys think we are, I say you guys, sorry, I don't mean to generalize, but the progressives think that we are forcing people to have to give birth to children, uh, basically making them sex or slaves or whatever slaves. That's serious. That's
Yes,
major.
yes,
We think you're
yes.
cutting off babies' arms, slitting their throats. Those are I mean those are insane. Those are two insane things.
Mhm.
And if we don't treat it like that and see that the other side is viewing it like that, nothing's ever going to come from it. We're
Right.
just
I just think if one worldview is applied federally, everyone could still live with their respective choice. If the other worldview is applied federally, everyone has to live under
but
one.
again, that respective choice is slitting the throats of babies.
And only your opinion. But I do want to at least ask my ego question because I know we're like over an hour, I think. And this is the last one.
I think we're right at an hour. We're good.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. In all of our debates, if you had to say one that you think you
Oh,
lost and I won, what would it be?
oh, shit. And I actually
You
know because
have
I
to.
told my no, I know. I told my wife right after it happened too. I'm just trying to remember what it was because I was like, yeah, I got creamed. I was like, I just didn't know. I didn't have an answer. I didn't know. I didn't have enough information about that one. Um,
Hmm.
I think I did well on our very first debate ever, which was my first debate ever, by the way. I think both of us did really well. Um,
Which people should
so
check that out.
it wasn't that one. It was oh, it was yeah, it was the religion one because which is why I said that that's the biggest flaw in my system is I wasn't even convinced by logic and reasoning to become Catholic. It was faith. So I I thought I didn't do well defending it because and I make a point online usually not to debate atheists. I debate other faith people that their faith is the wrong one because they're already in the faith
Mhm.
arena.
Yeah.
But getting somebody to come from the atheist into the faith is just, in my opinion, almost not quite, but almost a waste of time because it's like they're so far apart that it's just, and I don't really have, again, I don't have stats and statistics. Like there's nothing because it's just faith. So it's, I think that was probably my worst performance was whenever I had to defend. I don't remember if it was just uh, Catholic morality or whether it was
I
just
think it was, yeah.
Catholicism, but I think that was my worst performance by far.
I think it was
um,
as a moral foundation. Yeah,
yeah.
thanks for stroking my ego, by the way. But no,
do
yeah,
you
no.
do you agree? Do you think that was my worst one? Because I feel like it was, dude.
I don't know. I've never thought of that. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I guess. I thought I did really well on that. I took a lot of time
Yeah,
preparing my side and like trying to build like logical conclusions and stuff. So I think I did well on that. So I could understand why you feel that
yeah,
way, just to return the favor. So it's not just my ego getting stroked.
sure.
I thought that the one I thought I definitely lost was the economic one, the capitalism versus socialism one,
Okay,
which I think is like I'm a bit out of my prime of defending socialism. I'm not as ardent of a socialist as I was when
right.
we first when we first talked, but it's like at the end of the day, I don't know. I more so am defending what could be considered a form of capitalism. So I think like because of that, and you pointed that out pretty well, I think too. So it's like
Cool.
I definitely think I lost that one. So then last one for real, just to get your
Yeah.
what one do you think? Well, no, because you said it. You said you think that the best one you did was the abortion one.
Either the abortion or I think the abortion's probably the best. I think from because that's kind of a separate one that was before we had our show.
Yeah.
Out of the show, probably either the one you just said or the Crusades one, but only because on the Crusades one, I made a point to point out that I wasn't defending the individual actions of the Crusades, but rather just broadly, can we defend Christians going to on pilgrimages and all of the yada. So I thought that one was honestly I didn't think I won. I just thought it was pretty. It could go either way if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I thought that
So
was our best one altogether.
I agree too.
So yeah, I thought that was where we both like we had enough practice doing the
Yeah,
sure and stuff.
and that helps. The more we've done it, the more I know. Okay, what types of things you like
Yeah.
to bring up, where
Yeah.
you're gonna poke,
Yeah.
what things to research. Like I think on that one I had like a lot of preemptive counters that I was planning for. So
Yeah,
yeah.
same here. But yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this kind of style for ending the episode, let us know. This is going to be one we'll probably start doing more often. We'll
Mhm.
switch it in and out with the debates. If we think of other ones, if you guys have any ideas, let us know because we're looking for all kinds of things to kind of switch up the show. And like I always say before we end, Wednesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every week, or sometimes we skip weeks, but pretty consistently, multiple times a month. You can check us out for episodes. We're on Substack. If you're on there, subscribe. We're on YouTube. If you're on there, subscribe. We're on Spotify. If you're on there, heart us. I think we're on Apple. I'm not
And
sure.
follow. You can follow
You can
on there.
follow on Spotify. So do all of that so you don't miss out on an episode. We got tons of really good stuff coming. And until next time, peace.
Peace.